Good morning, everyone. This is the Euro Trade. I'm your host, Marcus Stoker D. If we're meeting for the first time, I've been trading for 18 years and I'm a commodities trader, which means that I analyze metals, I analyze energies markets, and those are my two main asset classes. Even though I do like to trade DAX, for this time of day we don't have DAX at Topstep, so sometimes I will put an equities trade late in the day. Now, yesterday we were talking about silver. So when I was doing the Euro trade, I was saying that 450 was of interest to me, is a potential continuation of the longs. Now, we had a pretty crazy day on silver that started really not before actual COMEX kicked in. Everything before then was a little bit quiet. And then they kicked it up into a very, very nice move up. And also I had a level on natural gas. And that was the one that I ended up taking in my live. So let me find yesterday's. Yeah, so this was the end of the day. That's 6 p.m. my time. So I took this long. So let's see if I can. I'm trying to kind of duplicate trades that I'm doing on my live because we don't have a calendar over there. It's just I traded with more size here. So here it is. So that was the trade that I took. One long, carried on. I think I got maybe about 1.7 R out of it, which was okay, for a neutral day type. And then they sort of settled into nothing. Overnight, we went lower. So yet again, natural gas is having some really nice sort of extended moves overnight. And that gives us an orientation, right? So let's just go like this. Now, where are we sitting today? So the call wall has not changed. Call wall is still at 450. Yesterday's value area, this is the fixed volume profile from yesterday. We're sitting below it, right? So let me just see whether just gonna extend this a bit to grab all of the day. So we're just slightly below it at this particular point. Where would I want to see this? Well, since we're below value right now, I don't really have any setups. And if we look at the larger time frames, we definitely have a change of sentiment. This is the weekly chart. This is a huge run up this week. Definitely indicative of an increased demand for this time of the year. So I don't necessarily want to fight it, but at the same time, it's come up a little bit too high for me to kind of go, yeah, let's just keep going long. So I would expect to see some sort of a reversal, because energies markets really do love taking most of the day in the opposite direction, and then once the regular trading hours come, that's typically when you see what the real intention is. So in a way, I always say that it's like a Tom and Jerry chase, cat and mouse chase, where Asia does one thing, London does another, and then COMEX does yet another. Now, sometimes Asia and London can have the same direction, but then as soon as the regular trading hours come, everything can change really rapidly. And this is why any kind of swing type trades intraday on natural gas, I don't like to do them at the beginning of London, because I kind of feel this is all maybe some profit taking overnight, and now we have to look at some other levels. So I would ideally like to see more selling, quite possibly down to somewhere between, like, let's say 435 and 430 area, because we have some put walls there. We have the HVL, which is a gamma flip level, and we also, I do believe we have the exhaustion of the range as well to the downside. Yeah, so so 35. So 435 is where the new ADR low is, and actually that's where it was yesterday as well. So that's not changed much. I do think the ADR high might have changed a bit. Yeah. So not much though. So the ADR high is sitting at 462. So quite a bit lower. And then where are our important GEX levels? So GEX 2, which is the level that I'm usually interested in, it's sitting at 470. Now, that's a little bit outside of today's range, so I'm not sure that we're going to get there. And because of that, I'm going to have a look at other GEX levels with high concentration of open interest. Let's see. We have GEX 3 at 455. Like I said, the cold wall is still the same area, so that's not that interesting. But maybe if we get up to 455, we can see some more shorts. And then ideally, maybe I can swipe another long, because I don't really want to be short. You know, I don't necessarily want to be short. Maybe if we come up really even more, so we extend on the day, we hit the ADR high. And towards the end of the day, when I like to swipe crude oil, maybe there's a short then. But in that case, I would expect it to tag 470 as well, because I love the GEX too for this purpose, for reversals, especially if we're in positive gamma, which we would have been by then. And yeah, for now, what do we have? We have a lot of inside bars on the daily. So sometimes when you see this could be a case of a supply and demand compression, and sometimes you will see this move that just kind of drops through all of it and then bounces. So that's definitely on the cards. But they are pushing it higher, pushing it higher. So for now, unless we get a pretty decent pullback or yet another run up that I don't catch for whatever reason, that is the plan for today. Don't know what that is. So, oh, right, that's fine. The wake up day. So yeah, that's the plan for natural gas. So I'm probably going to stay out of it for a good chunk of the day, just to kind of get an idea of what they want to do with it. And then I'm going to focus on those kind of end of day moves, as I normally do on energies. Now copper's looking reasonably interesting. Now, last night we had some pretty big piece of news that the government shutdown will be ending. Do we get CPI and PPI? Should we do a poll? Let's run a poll. I don't know. You know, I don't know whether we're going to get CPI and PPI. If we do, then I will be all over copper like a tramp on a sandwich. So let's see where we were for Asia. So Asia high. Well, let's go to overnight high. Overnight high up at 5:15.90. And Asia low, where do we open? There. So Asia low left in the dust, sort of all the way here. What do we have on the high time frames? Let's have a look at the weekly. A bit of a consolidation still. So this reversal, as you will see on the daily chart, was a big bearish engulfing. We're still kind of contained inside that. So is this a rally-based rally? Possibly, but right now, you know, I can't just imagine that, yeah, we're definitely going higher. I mean, if we get good CPI results, that is quite possible that we finally break out of this range. We have a lot of low volume areas from this fat finger institutional drop. But yeah, so for now, I have to just take this into consideration, that we are still in a range. And therefore, both sides of the picture, of the equation, can come into play. I may be just a little long biased on copper, but just like a tiny bit. Not too much, because otherwise the bias can destroy the plan. So because of the range that we had, I am going to focus more on the intraday, because that's what happens. We still have this little gap down. Not sure whether that's within the day's range, so that might be a little bit of wishful thinking there. What's the price? Price is 497. I know. Well, that is within the day's range, interestingly. Is it? No, it's not. What am I looking at? 4-hour chart. Yeah, 490, because I'm looking at 50 whatever. And yeah, so that's maybe something to look at for the next week. It's too far out, so even that is not really that helpful. So it's going to be intraday time frames today. And that was a weekend gap. So ADR low for the day is sitting at 505.70. And then ADR high all the way up at, let's call it 517.30. 35. There we go. And also have no idea what this line is, so that's going to go. VWAP is exactly what the price is right now. We want to see how the prices react. What is the profile doing? Profile is at the moment trying to leave some excess around this VWAP. So excess means basically a buying wick. They're called buying tails if the price wicks below the initial balance and comes back. Now, I don't know whether that's going to be a tail because we're already outside of the initial balance. So I'm going to put a marker here so that everybody knows where the initial balance is. What is the initial balance? First hour of trading. Any exchange, any active exchange that you're looking at right now. So that's IB low. And then this was IB high. We're looking at a neutral day type, but with the presence of some single prints here, if I really zoom in, this was a pretty strong move, but really because of where the initial balance low was located. Let me just tighten this up a bit. I'm not, this is not a big single print below the initial balance, and it's a neutral day type. So if we're going to go into an extension of sort of a running trend day, right? So it starts off on the wrong side, and then it sort of runs in the opposite direction with an extended volume, movement, all of that good stuff. So I wouldn't be too crazy to go into this one in particular because a single print is not large. I like to see not the price kind of going through the entirety of the initial balance and then creating a single print, but I like that to be pretty far out and then leaving a very decent distance between the IB low. Then I will consider not going a neutral day fade to kind of go for the responsive elastic band, pulling both ends of the initial balance. So right now I'm kind of open. I'm just observing to see what they want to do with it. But yeah, this is not typically what a running trend day, or as I like to call them, asymmetrical neutral days, kind of a trend day that started off to the wrong side. So we have some excess at the top as well in the C period, which is basically a third 30-minute period in the in the profile, right? So they're called the TPOs, and C period is the third, so basically 90 minutes into the session. Bruno says, "No, can't do a poll." I didn't want you to. It's not. It was a joke. So yeah, sorry. Don't wanna say that. We don't do polls. It was just like a little bit of a joke because back in the day, when we were doing like the early parts of TopstepTV some 2 years ago, They used to like run these polls all the time. They were polling the chat like it's going out of fashion. And I think the chat got a little bit annoyed by it. So should we run a poll? Like polls happening every like 5 minutes. But yeah, so for now I'm just kind of observing. I'm going to put a volume profile fixed range onto the London session as well. Just so we can see how current day's value, even though I don't really use current day's value that much. The only time I may use it is if we are quite obviously building some structure at the edges, and then sometimes there's a possibility that the market kind of rotates through that developing value. But the reason why I don't like it is because the developing value is still developing, right? So you don't really know exactly what they're trying to do, and it's very contextual, and it's just like a bit iffy when you're systematic. Yeah, up or down, that's right. Or long or short at a particular price. Yeah, you remember, Bruno. Now I think we only do a few per day, which is good. You know, we do the above below at power hour. And maybe every so often we might do, you know, an additional poll, but it's really not that poll heavy these days, which is a good thing. Yeah, chat no longer asking for fire drills either. Oh my god, fire drills. Remember that? That was hilarious. Ah, the good old days. Yeah, so it's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey, man. Like, we've grown a lot. I think we went from a bit of a silly stream into a more kind of news-based and more serious. I do miss Hogue this week. He's out. I think he's not feeling very well. So looking forward to when Hogue comes reversal. And then if we are gonna get CPI, I don't want to, you know, put all of my eggs in the early basket before the CPI comes out. So we'll see. Even though, who said it? We will never, one of the Fed officials, we will never see October data. It's like, okay, so does that mean we're not getting the CPI? Like, you know, it's kind of an ultimatum. It's sort of like, oh yeah, we're never getting it. We're never getting the October CPI. But then last time they released it. So I'm like, so if that gets released now, it's going to be like, well, was he lying? Like, what is going on there? And then you sort of lose all confidence in the sort of central banker drivel that they usually go through. Because, you know, let's face it, the job of a central banker is to say a lot of stuff without saying anything. So yeah, it's tricky. But yeah, if we do get CPI, great. And in that case, copper will definitely be my product of choice. Otherwise, let's maybe have a look at RBOB as well, because that's another good energies market. Ooh, that's quite low. Quite low and no bounce. All right, on the daily chart, looking pretty bearish to me. And where are we on the weekly? Not surprised. So wicked it up to the top of the range. This is the energies for you. Or in particular, crude oil, gasoline. So yeah, it whipped up to the top of the range and immediately went down. So yeah, still very much range bound on the weekly chart, so no perceivable trend. And gun to the head, what does they do with energies? I short them. The only time that I wouldn't short them would be like now, and it would be natural gas. Because natural gas does tend to go on these like extended runs to the upside when the natural gas demand kicks up because of cold weather or because of hot weather as well, because a lot of the air conditioning systems, they also use natural gas to run. But yeah, so this is short bias, but what I don't like about this is that we've had almost zero pullback after we created this nice reversal. There's a bit of a consolidation here, so maybe, oh god, it just pains me to say, maybe some longs before we smash it down. Will I be on the longs? Probably not. Probably not. I would like to maybe wait until RBOB comes up to some more interesting areas. There is so here's the thing, whenever I'm trading RBOB, I also look at crude oil, and crude oil has a put wall, so to speak, at 59. So once crude oil gets there, and we have a GEX3 literally at 58.50, that's too close for this summer day. Like once NYMEX kicks up, wherever you are right now, and when it's like fallen so much with pretty much no pullbacks, I don't really like to go continuation trade intraday. I would prefer for them to attempt to pump the other side just to make everybody believe it's like, yes, we're going up. And then they just run it back down after sort of 3 p.m. my time. That's like 9 a.m. Central. And sometimes that turnaround doesn't come until the Euro close, which is about 90 minutes after that. So 4:30 my time. And if you get to a point where you're long into the Euro close, just be very careful, and you would need some more aggressive management. At that point, if I want to keep being long for like whatever weird reason that might be, then I will move my stop to like a trail or something, just in case they start to run it back, because energies have a short bias. You know how the equities have a long upward bias? Energies have a short bias. And this is why I'm not too keen on running any shorts, any longs on energies. Every time I'm in a long, it takes forever. It's dragging, and the profit I usually get on it is nowhere near as juicy and nice as I get on the shorts. So yeah, so some levels of interest, like I said, if crude oil hits 59, so here's crude oil. So if it hits 59, I want to see what RBOB is doing, and then I drop down to a super low time frame, like 2 minute. I look at tape as well, look at Bookmap. And by the way, you guys asked me to do the Bookmap settings. They are up live on my YouTube, so it's not the most interesting video. I'm actually surprised that it's got the views that it has in like less than a day. But yeah, it is up there. So if you want to know my Bookmap settings, they are there. I didn't joke. I was actually very tired when I was making the video. So you see me, it was like the end of the day. It was probably like 10 p.m. my time, and I'm like, oh, I couldn't do the video. So I did the video, and I look tired. I look exhausted, which is usually the case after about 4 hours of the day. But it's a useful video because I break down how I modify the bubbles, exactly what I look for. And then, you always have trolls, don't you? So I had some person, I'm talking about delta, negative delta, positive delta. And, I'm basically breaking down that the shorter term traders are aggressive buyers or sellers, and how if that goes crazy, you can get this like nice reversal and a short squeeze into the end of the day on equities. And then some person was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Why does it matter if the buyers are aggressive? Like, there is always a seller and a buyer. It doesn't matter who is aggressive. Yeah, except, mate, there's like price velocity and size of those orders. So if one person has a bigger size than all the rest of them, which is typically a case with the institutions, yeah, the little guys might be super aggressive because they keep trying to do something and getting run over, effectively adding to the, like, let's say equities are going down and somebody keeps trying to pick the bottom, and they are getting run over. So they are aggressive buyers, and because their stops keep getting hit, they're adding to the negative delta. So when that goes crazy towards the end of the day, you have one big institution that has the power to take the entire order book in like a blink of an eye. They basically run over these little guys, because by nature, institutions trade with a lot of size, but they're not necessarily aggressive. They will usually just either offload their inventory or load up or take profits, right? And taking profits is somewhat, let's say, offloading inventory, because you're letting go of some of the inventory you're holding. And, you know, when people make such stupid comments like that, I'm like, yeah, you've been trading for like 3.5 seconds, mate. So yeah. And now, you know, I said, lol, okay, mate. So I didn't want to argue. And they said, lol, you can't even explain. It's in the video. I explained it. Like, could you even, like, you know, I kind of wonder whether they even watched the video. Did they ever watch? Because people want to argue, you know, they wake up, they choose violence, and then they do stupid comments on people's videos. And it's like, if I met them in real life, they wouldn't do a peep. Like, you know, and I've met trolls before in real life. They always end up being like the nicest people, and I'm always like, are you being fake right now? Because you're like so mean online, and I've met you now in real life, and they realize like I'm a very small woman as well. So it's like, what are you going to, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to argue with me now in real life situation? Of course they won't, because, you know, in real life nobody likes to be a dickhead. But online, oh my god, are we keyboard warriors? Like, everybody's you know, a multi-millionaire. So you can't even explain. I explained it. It is in there. What's your take on using 4-hour candle range in gold? Very contextual. So let's have a look at gold. I haven't looked at it in a hot minute because it's a little crazy for me at this time. So I kind of put it on the back burner. I mean, when there is a range, yes. But if we're talking a single candle range, the only way that I would use that is maybe if you look at whether we are coming into like a 50% of some sort of a breakup, because this is a breakout move, right? But if we were still contained in this area, then absolutely, like if you want to get really good intraday trades and you are in a market that is ranging, then, so, you know, let's forget that this has happened, right? So let's just say this does not exist. So put it outside of your head. We did not do that. So it doesn't exist, right? And instead this happened, and then we ran through it. So where would be your next good trading location intraday? Well, down here, because that's the range, right? And then what do you look for? Well, because I would argue that 4-hour time frame is actually intraday, because you will get 4-hour levels that get tagged throughout the day, sometimes multiple times on both ends. So I would be looking at the liquidity sweep, and then, you know, knowing that that's where the range is, I would then drill into it and maybe look for some equal lows or something. And we don't really have equal lows here. We have something near. So these two are pretty close by. And usually when they're that close by, next time that the price tests that, because it's an obvious level, the market makers use those areas to wick through it. And frequently it's because the actual options levels that they really need to execute some bigger inventory, they will be at the round number, right? So they will very likely be at 4180 rather than 4183.2. So every time a low is not a grab, I call them smash and grab or stop run in reverse, and anytime the low is at a weird price, just know that that is like game for market makers. It's like heaven, because they can see that a lot of people's stops are there, right under there. So this is why I like to look at the options chain, because that, you know, whilst the market makers will use an option to be either long gamma or short gamma against the majority of the investors, they will use active futures to kind of go long and short intraday in order to generate liquidity for the rest of us. So that's how it works. They're not like, and typically because of the size that they have and the amount of volume that they have to fill as a part of their position, not just like in trading, but actually their job is to fill a certain amount of volume on the day. They need to trade where most people are positioned. And unfortunately for retail traders that are not, a bit more clued in about the functionality and the mechanics of the markets, all of them will be having their stops. Let me just find the, if you want to be long, a lot of them will be long in like nonsense areas, and then they will be putting their stops. Sometimes they will be doing these tiny positions. So let's say they caught it here, and it's like, it's a good trade, right? But if they ended up range bound and they put the stop here, that the market makers are just going to go, whoop, take everybody's stops, and then go higher. And I mean, you can argue, you can definitely argue that they've done that here. So this was Globex open, and on paper, like, imagine that this down candle, let's kind of play around a bit. Imagine that this down candle, you can't see it, right? So the only thing you see is this. Looks pretty damn bullish, right? But look at the price. It's like 41886. Like, what is that? And you know that usually 4180, the round numbers across the board, like whatever you're looking at, it will be an area of interest. So, sometimes it's going to be, on the quarter, so like 175. And in that case, you will see an even deeper whip down. But yeah, so imagine the person who was like, yeah, we're definitely going up. Like, this is Globex open. Let's say you got a new XFA, you got that urge to trade, because I know most people do, especially if it's like not a new, if you haven't been funded before. Most people are super excited to trade the XFA because they have that dopamine rush, and they're running on high on hopium. And, they're waiting for the Globex to open to put their first trade in the XFA. And then what happens is that they see a move like this, and they're like, it's a breakout, we're going to break out. And then Tokyo comes in and, just takes everything. And the reason why this is like Shanghai Exchange stepping in, and it's actually the Shanghai Exchange that starts the real move on a lot of the days. Like, not every time, obviously, but let's say like 65% of all the perceivable days in the last 2 years. When did the actual real move start? After a fake out of Globex, and then into the Shanghai Exchange open. And then what happens? You have the real reversal, and that real low holds. But I would argue that this is the market makers just taking everybody's stops, getting the deep liquidity pool for a position that, probably looked something like this. And then you've got, a situation where you're right on the direction, but you mistimed it because you're maybe not aware that the Shanghai Exchange does this, or, you are maybe too involved right at the beginning of Globex, and you're really itching to do a trade. But yeah, so, and this is kind of the setup that I do into the LME. So if London makes a low or a high, and then LME opens, but this can also happen during COMEX, so we can have the overnight low that just gets established, and then they don't really touch it until COMEX comes. So again, time of day is important. But a lot of the times, especially on something like copper, where, the LME has a big say in the pricing of that metal, basically they will take the London low, and then the LME, the London Metal Exchange, will reverse it and then go through the majority of the Asia. But right now, obviously we have a situation where we've broken out. So how would you use this? So we're obviously outside of Asia range. It is a breakout. So where would be the good area to get involved? Well, you're probably not going to go down all the way here. I mean, you might. Gold is a bit crazy now. You might. We might go and test 4,200. We might go test 4,175, which is the GX3. So that would be a good one. So in fact, let's just put that in. I don't think we're going there because when gold starts to run, it runs. And one sign is that the Asia range has been broken out of. So you would get maybe a retracement tool. And I have it split in 4 equal sections here for a very good reason. So 2 price points to look at, which again, I tried to match up with the options. There's the 50% retracement, right? So many people will be like, oh, that's good enough. But I would actually like to see the retests and a lower quartile of this entire candle. But it's only a situation where you have a breakout and you're like, well, when the next 4-hour candle comes in, where do I want to buy this? Where is the best sort of risk-reward profile that I can get in this situation? And to me, it would be the low quartile. And, we get to about 42.20 area. And guess what? That's where we broke out of. So we did a little fake out, but then very quickly that was bought up. And then they just ran it higher. Now we're probably going to range for a while. So again, that low quartile definitely becomes something to look at later. And I definitely wouldn't be short, but that's how I would use the 4-hour. I always have a 4-hour chart somewhere on one of my other screens. So I am somebody who likes to look at the overall picture, know where you are and what it looks like, and also the question of what my trade looks like on a large time frame. Let's say you go into a trade. Let me just drag one of my other. Just give me a second. Just trying to find the right chart. All right, so this is a trade that I did like 3 days ago or something. End of day natural gas trade, 4-hour time frame, right? So it's like, what did my trade actually look like on? So let's just make this bigger because it was an intraday thing. So 245. I'm just going to try not to move that. There we go. So yeah, when you look at the chart, it's like, where are we? And here we had some lows that kept being reactive for since the previous week. So that was one of my orientation points. And then we came into the end of day. This was probably Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. And then I got my setup, right? I got my setup. And it's like, how does that look on a large time frame? Where are we? Well, we're at the bottom of the range. Looks good. But if my trade looks something like this, for example, I don't think this was a good one, even though I did get, a fair chunk of this. It's like, why isn't this a good trade? Well, because it's sort of breaky-outy, and I did use situational awareness on the day where we just kind of kept going higher and higher. So on those days, and it was a reversal on the weekly charts, and there was just no indications. Like every time I anchored the VWAP to a new high volume candle, it just kept going away from it, kept going away from it, kept going away from it. Looking at the tape, all green bubbles with very, very few kind of sweeps to the downside. It was all sweeps to the upside, which means that they're taking out those lower time frame people and just running through them and sustaining. That was the unusual thing. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to go short here, obviously. So there's definitely context. It's not like, oh, these day range fill means you fade the day any day. It's a setup that will work about 65% of the time, but context is important. So if you clearly have a single extension on the profile or some single prints that have been left behind, I'm not going to go against that. I said it the other day that I am a mean reversion trader by nature, but over the last 2 decades, I've taught myself that the mean reversion D needs to shut up on some days and just be, locked up in the corner somewhere so that she doesn't cause trouble on single direction outlier days. Mo Flow says, morning D, I usually trade NQ and GC. What other assets do you trade that can provide similar volatility during London? DAX, but we don't have it on Topstep. DAX, you know. Anything else, super quiet during London. So European indices are the ones that have most liquidity. And the reason why I love DAX is because it usually has around, like, you trade NQ and GC. Now, there is nothing during London that will provide you 800 to 1,000 tick range for the London session. Nothing, okay? So you need to put that idea on the back burner. However, out of all the products, like if we could trade any market, DAX would be the one. And that is why I frequently drag out the DAX and I show you what sort of a trade I'm doing there. Because these shows, if you're new here, I don't know, I haven't really seen your name around much. These shows were meant to be me trading the European market. So DAX, maybe some bond, because that's a part of Eurex as well. Not that I'm much of a fixed income trader anyway, but there are days when bonds are moving, especially after like monetary releases or into them. But in general, DAX is your best bet for this time of day. It has a range currently, an over range of 324 ticks per day, so more kind of akin to ES, but it is quicker than ES when it does move. So today, and out of those 300 ticks, 210 are done between 8 a.m. and 2:30 p.m., which is when the New York Stock Exchange, I'm just quoting my times of day. I'm in England. Used to be in London. I'm in Surrey now. But yeah, so here's DAX, right? So I have my little plastic DR indicator that shows me the ADR on the day in ticks. It shows me current, like how much do we traverse, and it shows me the London session. So we have currently traversed already 67% of the day's range, and we're barely 2 hours into it, and it's like 140 ticks already. So it's not the biggest day yet, but today we have a value acceptance. I have 450 as my level of interest, which wasn't VWAP earlier, but it is now. And yes, it's an equity index, but today, in light of the value acceptance, double distribution already, so that's a little bit strange. So I would like to see some sort of a pullback and then to continue to go short. But I'm putting it all off to see whether we are going to get CPI or not. So with that release looming, it's like, are we going to get it? Are we not going to get it? It's almost like a, let's run sweepstakes. Cedric says, do you mark a huge order? I'm trying to use the 1SCD bomb tape into my strategy to step one for potential entry. I don't use huge orders because on my products, a huge order is not huge. So that doesn't really apply. If you go look at my video, though, I do have something called the sweep on Bookmap. Sweep is kind of a quick velocity stop run takeout. And let's say that I'm looking for my longs for natural gas. Usually before we run into a mean reversion on natural gas or any kind of energies, it also happens on gold and on silver and a whole bunch of other products. The sweep is very obvious because velocity-wise, it happens within like a nanosecond. But I have an indicator on Bookmap that will print that for me. Even though, you know how Dolby says, oh, there's a wobble. There's a wobble on the dome. That's what that is, right? The wobble and then a sort of a big jolty move, and then they reverse. So at that point, usually you would get a pretty large volume candle on and I like a 2-minute chart for this. You can like anchor VWAP to it and see how the subsequent price reacts to it. It's kind of an ODA loop. A little bit tricky for beginners. I will say that. So, you're looking at me after 20 years of doing this day by day. And, I've been a prop trader since 2012. It's a long time to look at the markets every day. But yeah, so I personally don't mark a huge order because in my markets, it's nothing like equities, right? Equities will have orders that are like 400 lots. I don't know if you will ever see a 400 lot trade on, we saw it once on copper, and I'll show you what happened. Literally, we saw it once. Where was it? There it was. That was I think a 400 lot order in copper. Look at what it did. And this was all done in like an intraday time frame. Intraday time frame. Somebody either went bust or bad finger trade. I don't know what happened, but this looks institutional to me. Somebody, and we'll never know, right? But somebody blew out a copper like spectacularly. Whether they were short, whether they were trying to long it here or what, and like aiming for a continuation of the trend, probably. And they got it super wrong. I think it was a tariff news, and then they started to run the other way. So it started to roll over, and then all of a sudden we just got this huge smash. So that was a 400 lot in copper. That's what it does to copper. So yeah, to me, large order in copper would already be like 15, 20 contracts, and it's just not enough in my products to make me decide just purely based on that. Another thing is that on copper, you will only get 10 up, 10 down. So you don't see the order book past this. Some products that are highly traded, like gold, no, not even gold, I'm surprised at that. Weird. But crude oil, it has 100 up, 100 down. So you can almost like mark off to see whether these guys are going to trade out. And then if they do trade out, that can give you additional context. But for me, for my markets, it's just not a viable way to do things, sadly. Jason, okay, so Leah says, how do you add the other board on the side? This is an FAQ at this point. So if you see this layout, what you usually get is just this, just one single chart. So this shows you graphically, like how you can split your chart. And you can go nuts. You can go 3, you can go hundreds of charts. You can go 8 of them, you know, all in a very simple layout change. So it's here. It's called Select Layout. Right next to Add Chart Link and Undo Redo. That's where it is. Jason says, it really confuses me how the 4-hour candles open. In Forex and futures, they start at different times, so which one should I follow? Starting on different times is largely dependent. I'm gonna guess you're using MetaTrader for this, and MetaTrader 4 in particular was I will admit it's a weird platform. Like, I like it for charting purposes, and you know, I use it for AMP futures on MetaTrader 5. I haven't touched MetaTrader 4 since like 2019, the problem with it is that the server time is always in the country where that broker is based instead of the user time zone, right? So for example, AMP has it on GMT year round. So they don't even change it with DST. They're just like, whatever. So sometimes my MetaTrader chart will be showing like, let's say 7 p.m., but actually in reality is 6 p.m. local, and you know, stupid things like that. So it's just a you know, it's an oddity of the platform that was created way back when, and it was like, out of all the platforms that exist, it's still a younger platform, but since then we've had many more platforms that are even younger. So at this point, I think MetaTrader 5 is a bit of a dinosaur. They're trying to, like, the one vastly underutilized thing on MetaTrader is that it has this whole quant side to it. So it has a strategy tester. You can drag out tick data for nothing on futures. For nothing, literally, it's free. So, you know, from my perspective, whenever I'm trying to run some back tests, or because I don't know how many of you know that. I mean, those of you who watch me, you know I am somebody who does mechanical trading systems as well, and it's you know, it's one of those very useful points that kind of keep my costs down, and yet I can very quickly get some time series data, play around with it, do some of my back tests, and it includes everything. It includes volume. It's like a proper futures AMP thing, and yet you get it for free from MetaTrader. So that, from that side, I still really like it. And back in the day when we started our software development company in 2015, It was the most widely used platform in retail. So what we set out to do is to create professional trading tools that are order flow focused. So we have and statistics focused. So we have Blotech MP with this market profile. We have Blotech DR, that's market the daily range, so average session range, all of my levels. And over time, obviously other platforms came in, but it's still, to me, a platform that I chart everything on. It's just Granny D being Granny D. So, take it as you will. But I really like the functionality of it. I like the fact that they use C# under, or a derivative of C#. So if you want to see levels and how things worked, our indicators can give you this backtest mode on the chart. Even if you go down to the 30-minute time frame, you can do the same thing. So you can go back yesterday and see that it was an outlier day. You can see where the value areas were for London. You can then see where the value areas were for COMEX. You can see where the average session range was, when it got exceeded, how the price looked. And again, this is not very likely, a very likely feature on other platforms. So, just for my own functionalities, I still really, really like it. So as far as the start time candles, yes, you are right, Jason, that it's a bit of an oddity, but it's an oddity only because MetaTrader has the server time in a very random location. So generally TradingView will have futures charts, and they will start it, if I use GMT for my purpose, at 7 a.m. and then at 1 p.m. and so on and so on. So it will be always at the same time. And if you look at other platforms, maybe they will start at odd times, but let's see what I've got. I'm probably starting on the more, yeah, so mine will start at midnight, 4 a.m., 8 a.m. I actually prefer that. And why? Because 8 a.m. is London start time. So you won't be mixing Asia high and the London liquidity grab. It will become more obvious on the platforms that start at London Open, that start the 4-hour candle at London Open, than the ones that are starting it at effectively Eurex Open, which is not very relevant. But, again, personal preference if you use a 4-hour time frame. If you're somebody who uses retracements on the 4-hour chart, that's not going to make much difference. But for me, I really like to know where those tops are and bottoms, and I don't like to mix apples and oranges because of that. So I would prefer a platform, and we actually tried to do this, but it kind of caused a whole bunch of weirdness. We tried to recreate all of the candles, but it was very expensive on memory and stuff, and it just, we couldn't do it in the right way. And I don't know whether there is a platform where you can just move the candles on the 4-hour wherever you wanted to. I don't think so. And yes, it's a minor problem, but one that could be gotten around by going down to a lower time frame and just seeing where the actual Asia high and low happened. And Leah, that leads me into the next question. Leah says, how do you add Asian high? You go back, you look, and then you just go, that was Asia high. So for example, here, I'm going back in time. Sometimes you have to draw in your charts, guys. Like, you can't just go, oh, the indicator is going to do everything for me. So the Asia high is not time-based dependent. So when I have an algorithm that I can run on Sim and XFAs, but since I'm a live trader at Topstep, I can't have XFAs, and the API key provided is not enabled for live yet. I know they're working on it again, but for now I can't use my algorithms. Can use them on combines, but I've done that for a month and tested them, and then I wanted to run it on live and then discovered this. But I effectively just take the time. So I go have a look, basically look for the highest and lowest point in the time span between 11 p.m. my time and 8 a.m. London Open. and then whatever the value, or 759, because you don't want to include the London Open. So when that happens, the algorithm is actually telling me Asia high, Asia low. I think I've shown this when I was actively working on it. Maybe tomorrow I can like rerun. Okay, I'm not on tomorrow, but next week maybe we can rerun that, and then it's going to tell me exactly where the Asia high and Asia low are created. So that would be an algorithmic way of doing it, but because you're human, you basically just go back in time and just go, okay, so before London, where was the high? Here it is. And then you take a line and you go plop, and then you change the color, and then you name it, and you get Asia highs. It's not an indicator. I get the same question for my conterminous lines, like red lines. If you go back in on my YouTube channel when I was doing daily live streams on my own channel, Market Stalkers, I would always mark off the conterminous lines, basically the nearest edges of supplies and demands, so that I know where I'm at, with a red line. And people started thinking that that is a feature of the Blatek supply and demand indicator. So they're like, how do I switch on the conterminous lines? It was like my FAQ for a long, long time. So I had to keep explaining to people, it's like, it's not a feature. I just, look at it and I plop a line there, which kind of, in my analysis, it gives more weight to any kind of trades that I want to take into that. So it's like, maybe don't do that, D. And I want to have a line that tells me this is not a good place to keep running continuation trades because we have overhead supply there, or we've already come up like a million ticks from below. So yeah. Jib Jab says, I'm struggling to get all open, close, and high-low values for Asia. Do you guys have a trick to get them directly to Project X, and you also record them manually? So for now, like I said, I do just do them manually. And with the APIs at the moment, you can do it through an algo, but you can't draw an object. Like there is no functionality, there's no commands or parameters that are going to be putting a line on the chart. But if you are a little bit more nerdy like I am, and you want to automate that part, yeah, the API can drag out the highs and lows. So obviously I did that by defining, I said it already, defining a time, and then just looking for the highest and the lowest point. And then I would attach a flag to it because, I have an algorithm that once you have a breakout that needs to be tagged. Sorry, I'm going all nerdy now on you. I apologize for people who are not into that stuff. But yeah, you have to basically tell the algorithm that the breakout has happened, and then you have to decide, are you going to do another attempt, or is the flag going to stay like for the entirety of the day? Anyways, let's move on before I lose everyone. So yeah, for now, it's just a manual thing. I visually go back, mark them, and then I have it. And the same thing I do for initial balance high and low, even though on my other platform, I do have it as a just an automated line on the chart. And at some point, maybe when we get some more functionalities on the API side, you'll be able to draw objects and stuff, but don't ask me when that's coming. I don't know. Ask MP, don't ask me. Would you, Dirk Zimmerman says, would you consider a large candle in a 15-second chart as a sign of reversal? No. I would actually never consider a 15-second chart for anything. The lowest that I go is 2 minutes. So yeah. Cedric is again asking, do you have some indicator to do it on TV? High, low by session? No. So the top step levels that you see, the ones here, top step levels, when you do that, that's not an algorithm. That's JD doing an Excel spreadsheet when he wakes up, and then them just inputting those values into a very simple script. So it's a human doing the top step daily levels, doing Hoag's kickoff low, kickoff high, weekly kickoff levels. All of that is not an automated thing. It is a human thing. It's just plopped into a script that does a line on the chart. But it is an Excel spreadsheet that they fill in, And then as soon as that's available, obviously when it gets populated, and I think there's like a couple of people doing them, maybe even more than a couple of people. I think that some of the VIP coaches do their levels too. And then they just get uploaded onto Topstep levels. So yeah. But yeah, sometimes we've got to, and I actually think that it's a good thing to do some manual drawing so that you yourself are kind of aware of what's happened. It gives you more, it's kind of like writing stuff down, right? So if you just think of something and you just go, well, today I'm not going to move my stop. And then you move your stop. But for some reason, if you write down like 20 times before you trade, I will not move, or before you go to bed actually and then sleep, I will not move my stop, I will not move my stop, I will not. Something happens in the brain when you do things the pedestrian way, so the manual way, where you kind of gain an elevated awareness about it. And I do believe it's something to do with mind-muscle connection. It was my big sort of secret. Right, we're going to try a little long, like it's just a combine. So if we hold this this VWAP on copper, I'm just going to do a little punty long. And it is a trade retainment trade. Why? Because I don't normally trade this early for these markets. But what I am going to do is just going to track some stuff here to see how we're behaving. So what I do, I'm just tracking how this highest volume candle is behaving and whether we're holding above it. And if we are, then some temporary longs back up to the IV low might be in order. Again, very slow. This volume is not nearly enough to give us a super smooth trade, but it's the only thing that I'm seeing at the moment. So I'm going to wait until we get our 5-minute close, because we don't need to rush. That's the wrong time frame. So if you see here, we went below this low, and you could call these in equal areas. I mean, it's not really a swing, but this was the low. We took that, had a bigger volume, and now we want to see whether the sustained movement upside is going to happen. It's not happening yet, but patience. The suspense, dum dum dum, as we wait for the outcome. Right, so for now, it's not really doing it. So I'm going to keep this on because this is the highest volume candle in this cluster. And Nassim says, good morning, Dee. Is volume profile important for you? If so, how do you use to build context? Market profile is more important to me, I will be honest. But we don't have TPOs on here, so I'm just using the volume profile fixed range. It's a concept in its own right. So, you know, whoever comes to learn about market profile, it's not going to be something that you learn overnight, because there are subsets of it. And the way I like to explain it is that you have 3 components of market profile. You have previous value, which gives you open sentiment. You then have initial balance, which can give you setups and trade locations, but also the awareness of how the auction is doing. You have TPO profile extensions of the initial balance, which basically means that you are looking at how the auction is progressing. Is it strong? Is it weak? Do we have single prints? Are we building structure? And then when it comes to the actual day type, like the current day's value area, that's yet another component. I don't use that nearly as much. I just use the structure. And then if we happen to migrate back into the value area, that's great. So let's see. So now the value area has kind of come down a bit. And yes, we have built structure for London here. So this could aid in my context here. But again, the volume is so low. I'm not expecting much out of this. This is not the time of day where copper moves every single day. Asia is, so Shanghai Exchange. And then really you have to take this, you have to wait until LME for the really good, nice, smooth trades to happen. Right, we're getting some movement here. Just gonna have a little glance at the options levels. Yeah, we have nonsense options level. 510 would be a better area, but we do have maybe a temporary scalp here. And actually, because it's a scalp, I don't want to ruin this profit that I've got here. So I'm going to come down to micros and just run it as 5 micros. And I'm going to monitor that on the other window because I want to see what the big boys are doing. I'm not really particularly interested in what the little guys are doing. And we have a spread, so that's why when I entered, I actually have 3 ticks of spread here. So it's not instantaneous. But yeah, my stop is below the low here, 35 ticks. We're not going to be aiming for 3R. That's crazy. But we do have some equal highs here, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility that it pushes up. And then maybe I'll just put it up like into this round number. So play market maker if they do decide to rotate through the entirety of the range. So at the moment, we do have a neutral day with a bigger extension to the downside, but it's a double distribution day, so that's already a bit odd. And I want to save my budget for the day for the potential CPI. We're gonna get CPI. The biggest question of the day. Oh my god, what are my lips doing? Like, I just realized they look so sorry, I look like a beast on me. Terrible. Are we buying HGZ? Well, we're trying to, but we need volume for this to work. It's the only setup that I can think of. So my orientation point now becomes this little anchored VWAP at the real big VWAP from Globex. So trade location there. But I will say a stronger long that could last for an extended period of time is down at 510 gigs too. So this, even if it does work, I'm not going to hold it until the cows come home. This is not a 4-hour trade because the trade location is not strong enough. But at the moment, this is what we've got for the stream. If I wasn't on the stream, I would just go and wait. I would plop an alert on my trading view to tell me when we get here, and then I would sit down. I wouldn't sit here and watch it. Nassim says, good morning, D. It's volume pro. Oh, no, I've gone through that already. Ripper918. What do you use to pick where you set stop loss? I use the concept of the average range. So I scale my stops not to the position size of the trade that I'm in, which is something that I've seen a lot of people do, and it frankly shocked me a bit. But instead, I use it as a, let's say that you have an average range. Normally you have a daily average, right? How much we moved in the last 10 days on average. However, there's another measure that I kind of came up with that I took from the multi-day information, and I call it the average session range. It's basically the average of the RTH, and I call it ASR, and it is my concept. Again, I didn't invent it, but I discovered it, let's put it that way. So I use the average session range, and then I divide that by a particular number. Now, I am more of a higher risk reward, not high risk reward. I'm not going to say that because I'm like dead in the middle, right? So if you look at some of my stats here, so I'm trying to replicate what I'm doing in my live on a smaller size in these combines that we have here, because of the fact that I do trade some nonsense trades. So on this stream, because I don't trade these products, it was supposed to be a DAX thing. So yeah, it says 67% win, 1.7. So dead in the sort of middle, right? But this is a little bit high for me. So if I go back in time, I've been running this since last month. This was me fat fingering what I thought was a 5 micros into 5 minis and not realizing it because I had my balances all blocked out. So all I could see is just ticks. And then at the end of the day, I was like, what? That's supposed to be minus 200, not 2000. Jesus. So yeah, that was my mistake because I was kind of flipping between live and combines and live and combines, and then I never switched back the position size. It kind of copied it over from what I was doing, and then I changed the contract to the full contract, not changing the position size. So yeah, that was my mess up. It happens. It happens. It's fine. But yeah, so you know, not a huge amount of sample size, but generally, if I look at my 18 years of trading, this is high. Most of the time, I maintain the profit factor between 1.7 and 2.3 R, so not super high by any means. And then my trade win floats between 43% up to 52%. That's like the average. So anytime I'm kind of over that, I'm like, okay. I'm either a bit more scalpy because I've traded through times of like lower liquidity, or I'm maybe I'm just taking profits a little bit quicker. Right, let's see how this candle closes here, because I'm seeing a range. I'm not really seeing any commitment. We will get some volume coming in just as I start to finish this stream. Usually that's when the moves happen. Like I click stop streaming and then it goes whoosh. So maybe it's just let it go. I don't know, commit to it. The trade location is okay. It's okay. It's not the best for bigger trades because I still think we're going to tag 510 at some point. But yeah, my stop loss size is always going to be related to the average session range divided by a certain number. Now, don't go super crazy. Let's say copper has an average session range, and I use COMEX for this purpose, so 137 ticks. I basically divide that roughly by the risk reward that I'm trying to get. So because I aim for 2 or 3 R, so 137, let's say divided by 4, it gives me 34 ticks, 35 ticks rounded off. Now, I do sometimes divide it by 5 and 6 as well, especially if I find a smaller trade, or if we have a day where we have over 400 or 500 ticks, not just one day, but let's say we are in a period of time where the market, so I've got a minute to deal with this, because this is not what I wanted to see. I wanted to see volume bouncing from VWAP. We're not doing that just yet, so let's see what happens. And again, this is why I'm in with smaller size, because this time of day I've got a better level down here, but I'm not going to short it here because it's a stupid level VWAP. Usually they bounce it from here on the first run, and then on the second test they will kind of run it through. 20 seconds. If this doesn't pull back up, I'm out of it. I wait for the candle close on a 5-minute chart for a final decision. And it's gone. All right, so small paper cut. It might go back higher, but at the moment there's no volume here. So there's nothing to push it in my direction, and we're ranging. I did not want to see this fall back into the range, so that's my early exit. And a way not to cut yourself up to pieces and just stay in on trades forever and ever. So have a good systematic reference point. I wanted it to leave the range and bounce from VWAP, not to come back into the range. So by it coming back into the range, it's still a range. It's not a bounce from VWAP. I shouldn't be in this. The end. So yeah. Sion says, can you share fixed VWAP? So yesterday when I came off stream, I was still in chat, and I did post this on Twitter, but you probably didn't see that. So I'm going to show you my settings, but you will also see it here, right? So pip rater. It is underneath. I think they put my, yeah. So you have my Twitter. I don't know why they put my Twitter. I'm not that active now on it, but But yeah, so my settings for VPVR, that's VPVR. This is fixed range, so VPFR. So number of rows, so not ticks per row, but number of rows. Row size 24, volume up, down, value area volume 70. That's pretty default. Style. The things that I change here is the width of the box, so I wanted 100%. I changed the color of POC. I think it was white before or something. And I want the value area to be purple because I like purple value for some reason. It's like, I'm joking, but it's my company logo, right? So the Bob the ambush predator, he the lizard, on my most of my company letterheads and everything, it's purple. But he's a chameleon, so he can be any color that he wants, really. Depends on the situation. I just love the fact that chameleons are like such a good representation of what I'm trying to teach people. Because I'm a bit of a chameleon. Like, if it's a range day, I will trade range. If it's a, sort of a trending day, I will trade trend. But at my core, like, if you ask me, what are you, D? I'm a mean reversion trader, for sure. How do you trade CPI? That is the question of the day, isn't it? So I use the same setups that I would use even if it wasn't a CPI, but I never trade with an open position into it. I will wait for every craziness to settle, and then I will trade it based on whatever the reaction to that number was. If it's a huge initial bounce for COMEX, that's useless. But what is useful is the distribution curve that we create throughout the day. So the value that we build in case of a one strong move and then nothing else, I wait for the P-shape, effectively P-shape profile to be built. And then I will try to aim for the bottom of the distribution curve and then just run to the upside again with the shape of the profile. And I saw many people yesterday who were going against the B-shape profile on NASDAQ. And I think eventually it kind of went, I don't have NQ. I don't pay for NQ, so I'm just going to have to use something else. Because I don't trade it often enough, so why should I? I pay for YM, but not for NQ and ES. All right, so this is natural gas. D, we need NQ. And G. Let me find it. I can't even find it. That's how often I use it. Like, if I'm on TopstepTV main broadcast, they do ask me. And last time I was on, Hogue was like, what do you think about NQ? I was like, oh no. Oh no. I suppose this will do. Does this have the back test? It does. Okay. See, I normally have, there it is. Okay. Right. So the idea, or in case of a large, because CPI comes up at COMEX open, so you can have these days in the opposite direction where it creates a P shape for the day. But yesterday we had NASDAQ creating a B shape. So you see that? And most people were trying to run breakouts of VWAP on a B-shaped day. However, if you look at where the distribution curve was, this was the distribution curve, and this was the value area. So the current day value, as we were doing it, was actually printing in sort of this area. That was the range. So what I tried to do on those days is I look for some sort of a high, reference high. This one and that one would be two of them. This is an inside high. Inside highs frequently get broken on range days. And this, after the big move, is a range day. So a B-shaped day, I try not to go against it. So the only trade really that was quite, a scalp, let's say, would have been either a trade from attempting this high. This could have been looked at as a second distribution of the session session VWAP area, and then this rejection to the middle of this new distribution curve. Not further, yeah, it wicked around, but ultimately never rotated down. But really, I would have liked this to have happened during active trading hours. It didn't. So to me, this wasn't a good trade at all. But basically on a B-shaped day, I like to go as high into the distribution curve that was established already. And let's face it, we already became aware of the B-shaped day somewhere around like an hour. Now, I would say half an hour before the euro close, it already built a new distribution curve, B-shape in creation. And at that point, you need to reevaluate and just go, what's going on? But on copper, you will frequently see days where copper just shoots up on the release and then nothing else happens and you have the opposite of what I just showed. So I will still be long, but I will be looking for longs to go from the bottom of the developing value, if that makes sense. The other option is that if it's still range bound, let's say we're still bouncing between Asia low, Asia high, maybe this 510 ends up being like a pivotal area where we kind of go below it, but then reclaim it. And then there is some sort of a trend that becomes obvious either via a failed auction long, so you fail the downside auction and you go into a long trade, and then it extends the initial balance further, eventually claims the Asia high and keeps going. So there's many setups, but the setups that I use, the playbooks I have, are always the same. It's the same sort of 5 setups. They have minor variations to them in regards to like whatever the day is doing, but and, you know, for these products, none of them are this time of day. Usually I have DAX for that. So yeah, we're hoping to move this show closer to LME. What's my number one asset? It used to be crude oil for 10 years. And then crude oil had a personality transplant. So if you ask me that same question in and around COVID and before COVID and up to about 2023, I would not even think. I would be like, crude oil is my baby. Unfortunately, crude oil is now, like the other day, I looked at it sort of at the time of day when it should have a lot of volume. And I swear to you, it was sat, what was the price? So the price was like 58, I think it was 58.52. And it just sat there. And it just didn't move. It's like, and you know, you get that moment, it's like, is the Starlink off? Like, is my, you know, did Starlink go offline or something? When that starts to happen, I tend to move away from it. And that started happening 2 years ago in crude oil. So right now, I would say my, and you know, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, I'm always just doing this. Nowadays, I kind of bounce between copper, natural gas, and silver. So which one is my number one? I don't know. I probably trade copper the most out of all those. So yeah, let's say copper. Why? Because it's smooth, because it's, you know, it gives you time to react. It's not doing this intra-candle nonsense that GC and NQ are both doing now. Where you're in a trade, like for example, this one turned around on me quite smoothly. Right? It didn't go down, then up, then down, and up, then down, and up. It just went below the reference point. To me, that's so much easier to manage an early exit than something like NQ that's like spazzing out intra-candle whilst you're looking at it. And if I'm trading NQ, which is rare, and usually for power hours, sort of like right after MOC happens, because I am that trader. Love MOC. I absolutely love it. On a particular day, not every day. We have to have like heavily negative or heavily positive delta in order for me to get involved. And even then, I would probably choose YM over NQ, but never mind. But if I am, for some reason, trading NQ, I would change the candles to Heiken Ashi to smooth out the spastic movement that NQ does. Because I'm sorry, guys, I'm not a young person anymore. Like I'm not old, but I'm not that young either. You know, my birthday's coming up in December. I'll be 45. My eyes don't work as well. my brain doesn't work as fast as it used to. I'm sorry to say. It's just, aging. I may look like a kid, but I do have gray hair, which I'm trying to grow out. I thought it was going to be like a nice sort of gray, but unfortunately I have like Pepe Le Pew streak, which is all right. It might look all right. We'll see. If I hate it, I can always dye it back, right? But I'm not a young person. My brain is slower. I need time to process things. And I have very high intelligence, yes, but that doesn't help you with your processing speed. Because if you miss a setup because something's moving too quickly and then you get irked, then you have emotional dysregulation. So let me remind you all that emotional dysregulation is the killer of the accounts. There's no doubt about that. So if I can't manage a trade objectively, like for example, this one, I had a reference point. We had a high volume bar. We went below it. Do I want to do a breakout here? I'm not a breakout trader, so I'm a mean reversion trader. I wanted to go back. In NQ, this would wake up and down a million times around the level and then change sometimes completely the color of the candle in the last 2 seconds. I despise that. I cannot tell you how disgusted I am with that price action. But then you have copper. They're just smooth. It makes a decision. It goes. Do I have a setup here? No, I might have one at 510. That's my next level of reference. But I do not chop myself up in the same kind of area multiple times. I trade once, do an early exit if I can, if it allows me, and then I wait for the next area. I also wait for the next day trading time zone, which for me now isn't going to be until like maybe an hour after this stream, maybe. But for natural, if somebody's asking what do I see for natural gas, didn't we go through that already? So I would like to see it go higher first to like 445, 455. Maybe a short today, but for me, I would like to see some commitment of longs into the end of day again, around 435. So that's the exhaustion of the range. Now, another thing that's slightly problematic here is GEX2 is all the way up at like 470. Do I think we can reach that? Maybe, like we have the inventories today, but I'm probably not going to trade into the inventories, nor will I trade the aftermath. I will trade the last sort of 2 hours of the day on natural gas. So whatever they do, inventories can sometimes bring this like smash lower, and then a quick reversal. So we used to call it EIA and reverse, EIA and fade. But so we'll see whether that rings true. But I'm not going to fade it immediately. I want to give it time. Again, maybe some higher volume, a sweep maybe, and then like a reversal. If it goes higher, just like immediately, I don't think I want that, so I'm probably not going to get involved in some mad breakout that happens. And but yeah, in general, I would want to be long on natural gas. It's the only caveat is that we've come up so high in this week. Like, look at this candle. If this is not an outlier week, I don't know what is. So I would want to see a pretty decent pullback before I do any further longs. But am I going to be short? It's a good question, but maybe, just maybe, if we get to like the final 15 minutes of NYMEX and we're up at ADR high or GEX2, and I'll be like, yeah, this is very extended. And then even so, I will still look for some kind of a sweep and then a microstructure change to the downside based on a higher volume candle. So that will be one way. And then I will look for a strong reversal through that area. But the time of day has to be very, for counter trend trades of like that nature that are effectively dangerous. It has to be like the pure end of the day. Like all you're doing is taking the take profit of whoever was long on the way up on that day. And I'm the type of trader that the longer the day goes on, I can read the market much better. So this early in the day, especially for these products, it's always a bit of a like, I have no idea what they want to do. And like you can read it, what's happening in real time, but the true probability enhancers for me is the time of day. And for DAX, I have one at 9:30 a.m. when I started these streams. But for everything else that we have currently, I don't. It's just how it is. So we can hope that we'll change the time closer to the metals exchange. Fingers crossed. Yeah, so in the meantime, we can talk about the levels that might come in the day. I can tell you that on natural gas, we were below the value area from yesterday. So this is the value area. And right now, we're actually seeing a reversal from there. So is this the reversal that that brings us all the way down? And then we have a good setup? I don't know, but actually I might just try this for the end of the stream. So NG, remember to change the size this time. So that's the full contract. Let's just pop in one. Let's see if they can get it down somewhere. Obviously it's the end of the stream now, but maybe HVL at 440 could be a good interim target here. So not shooting for the entirety of the day, but here we have VWAP reversal, and another area here is the value low from yesterday. Now if some volume wants to step in, it will be very welcome, but if not, then we will wait for a better time of day. But just remember, I don't trade natural gas this early. Just going off what we have here, doing a bit of clicking buttons on a small size and the combine that I can't do anything with because I've got a live account. So we be clicking buttons. But even so, this is the second trade that I'm doing for London. If this one doesn't do anything, then again, I'll have a big break and then come back, reset, and come back for the times of day when the high probabilities are definitely playing out, which is post my cut, so after 3 p.m. London time and after 9 a.m. Central and into the Euro close. That will be the first time that I look on precious metals and energies markets. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Next week you're going to see me twice on the main broadcast. I'm going to be on for one of the fast markets, kind of the final hour, and then I think I'm doing group coaching on one of the days as well. So check the TopstepTV guide for those times. If I don't see you again, have a great weekend, and watch out for natural gas inventories today, because they don't care about the government shutdown. They've been releasing their numbers as if nothing is happening. So NASA shuts down, but EIA is like, nah, we keep going, which is very funny. And yeah, let's see when the CPI gets released. I'm on pins and needles to see what happens with that particular show. Yeah, so again, we'll see, right? You'll probably find me in chat on the main broadcast. So that was it. This was the Euro Trade. I'm Marcus Stalker D. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Take care.